Welcome to another episode of A Life Worth Living.
What is the common thread that connects us all?
Sometimes we feel alone and we believe that we are the only person on earth who could possibly feel this way.
But maybe we all have more in common than we think.
So, we're asking for people's point of view to talk about their experiences in an attempt to better ourselves and find the common thread that connects us all. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Anaheim Stoneworks and Mastertati LA Training Center. Our guest today is someone that I met during grad school at Claremont Graduate University. We were both working together at one of the research institutes on campus, and I was really impressed by her leadership, work ethic, and kindness. She's currently the Specialist Programs Consultant at Capital Group. This girl has a bright future ahead of her, and I'm honored to introduce to you Dr. Joleen Archibald. So thanks for joining us, Joleen.
Of course, a pleasure to be here.
So my question is, what is organizational behavior and how can you get an emphasis in evaluation and leadership? Can you kind of explain a little bit more about what you're studying or what your degrees are?
Yeah, in general, organizational behavior is the study of the individual, the group, or the organization itself and how it functions as a whole and how you play into those different parts of an organization. Particularly, leadership is kind of understanding the processes that actually influence either an individual or a formalized group of individuals to set or attain a goal.
And how does that happen?
Well, what I think the most important thing is that anyone can really develop themselves through self-awareness. And I think that allows you to actually start on your own leadership competencies in the sense where you're actually being more self-aware. So for instance, usually my recommendation to individuals is if you're looking to improve your leadership, even on your own, go to, there's a book called StrengthsFinder 2.0. It's $10.99. It's less than a movie ticket. It's by Gallup polls. And you can take a 15-minute survey on what your strengths are. Because I find in today's world, we're kind of more deficit-based. So think about it. When you're in grade school and you get an A in English and an F in math, what does your mom come home and tell you? What do you need to improve on?
Math, obviously.
No, that's the opposite. I mean, if you're really looking to improve, it's very easy to put you in a GATE English class and have you really expand your writing skills, take it to that next level. Where instead...
Be awesome.
Yeah, be awesome in what you're doing instead of being mediocre. I find it's just an easy assessment tool. It gives you your 5 top traits. So for example, my top traits are I'm an achiever. In that sense, I like to set goals for myself. I'm an activator. I like to do things. I have focus, which just means that I can actually complete tasks. I'm an individualizer, which means that I love to work with people, and then I'm also a learner, which you can tell from my degrees.
So what made you want to go this route? I mean, when did you know you were wanting to help people and be in this field?
I think from the very beginning when I realized that everyone really has to work. When I was 18 years old, I was in college and I wanted to get a part-time job, and I was looking at restaurants and looking at different bosses. And really, I was able to have a mentor in college that allowed me to start my own research lab looking at different organizational issues.
Research lab?
Research lab.
So wait, let's talk about that. What do you do for the research lab, or what's your involvement with that?
Well, when I started out, when I actually started college, is I got really interested in stress in organizations. And so I approached my teacher and asked him, can I start doing research on this? Can I start asking students how they're coping with their first year of school, stress, getting a job, how they're enjoying their job, is that affecting their academics? So kind of understanding those issues, and they found if you take on too many things your first year when you're year of transition, it actually ends up hindering you. A lot of people want to take on too much, but really it's better to focus on one thing at a time, kind of using those building blocks so you can actually get ahead.
That's amazing. I love that.
And it's kind of, it goes back to using your strengths, what you said before. Don't focus on the negative or like on what you're not good at. Just focus on what you're really good at, and then you can excel and be great at it. You can be the best.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing too. I think if you really focus on what you love doing, it's like for me working in recovery, I find that it's not work to me anymore. That's the thing that's amazing. If you love what you do, it doesn't become work. And if you love what you do, you're naturally going to excel.
Exactly.
And I think I like the suggestion you said about taking the StrengthsFinder, because I've taken it myself, and I feel like everyone always likes taking those tests to kind of find out more about themselves, even though you might already know a little bit about what you're good at. This kind of helps like solidify that knowledge, right?
Well, with StrengthsFinder, tell me I've never done that before. Tell me a little bit about that. What is some of the questions that are asked?
Well, it kind of gets at your best mode of functioning. What do you prefer to function at? Like, what do you prefer to function in groups? Do you prefer to do tasks solitarily?
I think I like the Gallup too because it gives you suggestions on how to use it, and it's super easy to understand. So, because that's the next step too. Like, I can figure out what my strengths are, but how do I apply this? And the Gallup helps you get through it. So,
okay.
I have a question. Because this is something that I always have a debate about, and I know there's kind of a debate out there. Are leaders born or are they made?
Good question.
Well, I believe, let me actually go back to the research. 70% of the research say that leaders are made. 30% say that they're born. The top ones that I think about are one, aspiration. You know, you have to want to be a leader. Confidence. Connection with your followers. Integrity. And lastly, but probably most importantly, resilience.
I think a lot of those tools, though, or those traits that you just expressed, though, I think a lot of those you have to be born with, though. I mean, because I think that's like a personality thing. Honestly, I think if you don't have them...
Well, I think that you can increase your connected nature to your followers through enhancing your emotional intelligence quotient. So, you know, your EQ or your emotional intelligence trying to read people. There are books that you can do self-development on. I think being aware of your strengths helps you figure out how you can be more self-confident.
Right.
Totally agree with that for sure. I'm talking more like on a personable level. I feel like there's a lot of people that have gone through a lot of things though and can utilize their own personal truths and experiences that they've had to better educate people.
Well, I think what we're getting at is two different sides to the coin. I think you have to go through training in order to be a better leader. But I think that you don't necessarily have to be born with all of the leadership traits. Yes, you have to be born with a certain level of intelligence, a certain level of wanting or motivation to be a leader. But at the same time, you can expand on those necessary tools. I mean, you can practice better integrity by just making sure that if I want to be more health conscious, I use recyclable paper, like I'm using sustainable earth pads. So it's literally... practicing what you preach, just taking those small steps.
The small step thing. I think that is so important that you just brought that up because small steps, I think it's so important that people acknowledge that small steps are key. I think a lot of people set too high of goals. Is that something you can talk about?
Yeah, goal setting is huge in leadership. Yeah. That's part of the definition that I actually described earlier when I was talking about using influence to set goals and achieve goals. Setting the right kind of goals, so those SMART goals, those specific, measurable, attainable goals are much easier to fulfill than if you set a large general goal. Like everyone at the beginning of the new year is always like, I'm going to get in shape for summer. What does getting in shape mean for you?
Yeah.
Does that mean you're going to run a couple extra miles? Does that mean you're going to go to the gym 3 times a week? So they're setting a general goal, but it's not really specific.
And like, how much weight do you want to lose, or like, you know, where do you want to be at, and what are the steps you're going to take every day to do that? So maybe today I'm going to go for a walk. Tomorrow, right? That's
exactly.
But I also, even further along, I think I'm looking for is when you set those goals. Like, I feel like a lot of people will say, yeah, I want to lose weight for summer, and I want to be in shape. But I think people also overset. Like, I'm going to do it 5 times a week, where in reality, they don't do it at all. They should probably just simply start with 1 day a week, and if they can add it, it would be better to do that.
Yeah, and that's why they really have to be attainable. No one can just lose 100 pounds without a lot of actual effort of changing their diet, running, exercising twice a day probably. That's an intensive process.
Yeah.
And so setting small goals, I completely agree with you, is the best way to get those building blocks and that foundation.
Because something I always ran into is I'd always set too high of expectations for myself, and I'd get overwhelmed and I'd not do it.
Mm-hmm. And that's really common. That's super common.
That's why I think it's so important to talk about that, because I just learned a couple years ago, hey, with working out in particular, go once a week as opposed to saying you're going to go 5 times a week, because then if I didn't go 5 times a week, I'd become over it.
Right.
Oh, I can't do it next week. I didn't make my goal this week.
Exactly, an excuse.
Yeah. So I have a question actually relating to this, is what happens if you do hit that point where you set a big goal and you kind of almost set yourself up for failure and you're in that failure position? Like, how are we going to like overcome that feeling?
I think a lot of times overcoming that feeling is just being able to adapt. So having that adaptability and that resilience. That's when I go back to the resilience characteristic.
Yeah, so what's resilience?
So resiliency is your ability when you fail at something to pick yourself back up. that's really how you can demonstrate good leadership and become a better leader, just through small steps every day. Is really, all right, I didn't make my goal, but next week, instead of setting the bar at 5 times since I didn't make that, maybe let's just start with 1, and then I'll be able to make that goal and move on and kind of be able to increase it next week to twice a week. And then, next week 3 times a week, and work up to that 5 time a week goal that you're going for.
Well, that's the thing that goes with like a lot of millionaires. A lot of them, went bankrupt a lot of the times before they ever made their money. I think all great change proceeds through chaos. I'm a firm believer of that, and I think that's a prime example of what you're saying is really important, especially because I find that as a balance thing. You're learning how to balance things as opposed to be on one side or the other.
I would agree. I think that the only thing constant is change, but I think being able to be adaptable and resilient in those times is what actually leads to a lot of success and eventual goal attainment.
Adaptability is a big one too, because you might set a goal for yourself that maybe doesn't happen because of the circumstances. Like, it's not your fault. You were doing everything that you had planned out to do, but the circumstances changed, so now you have to adapt to those new circumstances. You can't keep going on the same path.
Yeah, it'll always be excuses. A lot of times people blame other people for their problems when instead they really have to look internally. If you don't like where you're going in your life, sometimes you shouldn't look around you, you should look within you.
So I have a question, because this got me thinking about it. How do you deal with someone, or if you've ever dealt with someone, in a leadership position that is not self-aware, and they need to start becoming self-aware? So maybe they're not a good leader, but they're in a leadership position.
But what you can do is at least step up to the plate yourself.
Like that.
And start, really acting with integrity, because if your boss isn't able to document the accountability, at least you're able to account and understand what you're accountable for, so that way later on that person doesn't get you in trouble. Because a lot of times those people in those positions will pass the buck. They'll say, oh, well, my assistant didn't help me, when in reality, if you have the email chain saying that you had put the ball in their court, when the firing squad comes down the line, they're going to skip you.
Yeah. So what about social media and leadership? Because I feel like there's a potential for a lot of things to go really well, or a lot of things to go really badly, really poorly.
Well, leadership doesn't have to always be for good. Leadership can be good, leadership can be bad. For instance, you can have Hitler, very bad, but also very charismatic, in the sense where he was able to create motivation, inspiration for these soldiers to do something that was actually very bad. He was still using strong leadership techniques, but in a bad way. And I think today with social media, if you really want to step up to the leadership plate, you have to make sure that you're aware of what's going up about you and what's going on around you.
Self-awareness.
Because a lot of people can actually tape you, littering on the floor or small things like that. If you're helping someone, you're being a leader. If you're helping a dog or a cat and you get recorded and put on YouTube, you can be showing a leadership position, or helping someone out who has fallen on the side of the street. Just even those small things, by kind of walking the talk in your own small personal leadership journey, are very easy to do, but are also very public. Today, nothing is really private anymore. And so if you're able to, again, walk that talk, I think a lot of times you can actually increase your own leadership by just being self-aware.
Good,
Walking the walk. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. I think you gave us
I still have a couple more questions.
Really? You do? All right. Yeah. Okay, let's keep...
Whoa, sorry. I got a couple more. She's really smart. So, so are you. Couple quick things. With everything, you've learned a lot. And you're 29 years old. You've acquired and obtained a lot of information and a lot of knowledge. What are some of the things that you've learned if you had 3 final things to say to people, and elaborate as much as you want or as little as you want into a bullet point form, but what are some of those things that you would express that you have learned that are a bit detrimental to where you're at today?
Well, I think I would start, the first one is just by being able to listen to other people, to actually be able to take in what they're saying and hear what they're saying and not misconstrue their words, so you can actually get proper feedback. And I think the second is being able to provide that feedback to other people. So being honest enough, not only with yourself, but with other people's actual abilities, so that you can actually provide people feedback, because that's what creates collaboration between two people. The ability to receive feedback and also the ability to give feedback. And I think that's really how you grow and develop as a person, and I mean also as a leader. But I'm saying, you know, just fundamentally as a person, I think those two exchanges, if you're able to work on those two skills, are the most important. Wisest person in the room is the one that says nothing.
Damn,
because you're actually able to actually absorb all of their knowledge without giving any of yours away.
I need a muzzle.
We'll buy you one.
So, no, and then is there one final one you wanted to give as your bread and butter?
I would say the ability to be resilient, to be able to take those fails and turn them into another try and eventually another success.
A learning experience.
A learning experience. You know, it's kind of this donut school of management in the sense where you have the donut and you try and find out what you don't like until you find out what you like or what you're good at.
Yeah.
In the sense where you're going to have to fail a lot of times in life in order to actually come about success. No one's ever won an Olympic event without actually having to practice and fail and lose to someone else first.
Right. Well, I actually heard something like a really good perspective take on this the other day. It was from someone that was doing a jiu-jitsu match. They were competing and they won 2 of the matches and then lost, I don't remember, like maybe 3 or 2 other ones. And they said, when asked like, how did it go? They said, well, I got 2 wins and then I got 3 private lessons.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Which was so good. It's like, yeah, you learned.
Well, it's how you look at it. I mean, if you dwell, like I'm a firm believer, it's like people like they dwell on the past. Mm-hmm. So you can dwell on things that had happened, or you can take it as a learning example and move forward. You know, and that's something that I had to do for a lot of my mistakes, and I think that's a very, very big takeaway.
Yeah. You got to treat them as learning experiences instead of like, this was the worst thing I've ever done. No, this is just one piece of the puzzle and just one learning experience that you can take away so you can be better at whatever you want to do. A better person, a better leader, a better mom, a better dad, a better brother, a better friend.
That's amazing. I love that. I appreciate that. I learned a lot today. That was very, very,
well, thank you guys for having me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching. Make sure to catch us every Tuesday by subscribing to our channel.
Let us know in the comments below how you make life worth living. We're sure you have lots of great tips to share, and by working together, we can all thrive. I have it memorized.
She's good. I think that's gonna be good. One more time, let's do it again.
This is how you guys do it.
The speed needs to be a little bit faster. Can you make it a little bit faster?
No, I think it's better that way because I need to be able to...
We'd like to thank Anaheim Stone for making this show possible. Nothing says luxury like enhancing your surroundings with natural quality stone.
Master Toddy LA Training Center offers authentic Muay Thai training with locations in Bangkok, Pomona, and Anaheim. For more information, visit mastertoddyla.com.